guys, welcome back to First and 10 over here on Clueless Gamers. I'm your host, Pete, joined as always in a second by my co-host, Ryan. Guys, we're back to discuss all of the Thanksgiving week and weekend breakdown. And at the top, we're both going to apologize because we were kind of liars. You know, we said we were going to come back for a special video about 25 minutes to do the picks before Thanksgiving. We, of course, had the video out last week, which thank you guys so much for the support. And then we kind of caught up with the holidays and kind of overestimated our ability to do that. Especially I was hosting people here. Brian left for some family. So we apologize if you're waiting for that. But to be honest, especially me, my picks were terrible. I'm about to go 500 for the week, go 8-8. Lost all 4 of the primetime games between Thursday and Friday. Went 0-4. So if you were looking for advice from me, betting or otherwise, honestly, maybe better that you didn't hear me because it was a rough week. This season has been really tough for picks for everyone except apparently my father, who is in the 75 percentile. So, apparently some of us are good. So good for him. But for the rest of us commoners, it's been a rough year. So we do apologize for not being there, but we're going to make it up here and talk about that. And of course, give our picks for the upcoming week, Brian. We are really getting to the last month of the season here, about 5 games to go. Crazy stuff. Really crazy that we're winding up. So with all that being said, Brian, welcome you in, man. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving? And are you excited to talk some Turkey Day football?
Oh yeah, Thanksgiving is always a day that you look forward to. I know football fans, it's non-football fans.
Yeah.
It's just a great day for being with family. Chiefs Cowboys played a very interesting game. Packers Lions as well. The night game maybe didn't live up to being a good game. The Ravens just were
Yeah.
not very good. And then, we had the additional game on Black Friday as well with the Eagles kind of continuing their sputtering play. And we also have a game in progress while we're recording now, so we can keep the audience updated. And right now, it's not going well for the Giants.
No.
They're about to start the second half. It is 30-7
Yeah.
New England.
Yeah. It's brutal. Kind of expected the Giants to get blown out. Jackson Dart had one good drive there, touchdown to Wandale Robinson. But other than that, I mean, come on. We knew how this was going to go. And something we'll talk about more with the 2 now top seeds with the Patriots. If they win this game, which they look well on their way to winning this, they'll secure the number 1 seed at least through this week. The Broncos can't catch them in that regard. And the Bears took the top spot at this point in the NFC. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the episode goes on. But guys, let's wind the clocks back here. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving because that's where we're going. We're going back to Thanksgiving. We're going to start with the games in sequential order. Of course, we're starting in Detroit. Packers, Lions. The Packers win this one 31-24. A game in which I thought was solid. The Lions were kind of playing from behind the entire time. And I think, Brian, there's been a lot of talk. We've had these conversations. Obviously, mainstream media has had these conversations. What would this Lions team be like without both their coordinators this season? And can they make it, the proper adjustments? I said, if you remember, I said that I think the bigger concern for this team is this offensive line. They had Frank Ragnow retire. They've lost a couple pieces. They've even had injuries this season to Decker and others. They're not the same. And Jared Goff is knowing it as a lifelong Rams fan, is an absolute statue in the pocket. If you cannot protect him, he is going to have a very long day and he becomes extremely turnover prone. And I think we've kind of seen that through the season where he's well protected. He dices it up. He's not. He's pretty bad. And I think that is pretty self-explanatory. The Packers maybe didn't harass him completely, but they got to him enough. Micah Parsons there on that key 3rd down at the end of the game, 3rd and goal. The huge sack allows them to settle for a field goal to make it from 31-21 to 31-24. And basically, the Packers salt the game away. The Lions never get the ball back, and that was all she wrote. Brian, right now, Packers been a little turbulent. They've had some rough losses, but they're smack in the middle of the NFC conference here, have a great chance of making the playoffs. If you look at all the next gen stats and Pro Football Focus, all these things, if you believe that, they're sitting in 2nd place. They're right there. And then you have the Lions, Bry, who are on the outside looking in, hovering around that 8 to 9 seed. What was your takeaway from this game? Does this feel like, hey, I could trust the Packers, or is this the Lions might be left without a seat at the table this year?
Yeah, that's a good question because the Packers at their best have been, have felt like one of the best teams in the league, but they've had, as we've talked about on
Yeah,
the show,
they're
too
up and
many
down.
of these kind of strange performances. At Cleveland in the tie game with the Cowboys, just some games where their
Carolina.
offense did not play particularly. Yeah, a Carolina game where it was just a complete no-show. So
Yeah.
it's hard to trust really any team. It feels like the only teams that you can
Yeah.
trust in the league right now are the teams that you trust to lose. The good
True.
teams seem to have too many slip ups, and the Packers are in that category. I mean, they did some very good things in this game. For Love, it was one of his better games with 4 touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over. I thought he was very efficient, used a variety of weapons well. Watson and Wicks gets in the end zone a couple of times. But on the other side, I would have to say there now is some concern for the Lions because you go into this game and Amon-Ra St. Brown gets injured early. We're not sure about his status going forward, but he might miss a game or two, and that's a big problem for their passing game because you know how important he is. And the Packers, in this game, they hold Gibbs. He didn't explode like he did the week before against the Giants, where he just had a nuclear game. This time they hold him to a pedestrian 68 yards. It feels like if you do that, the Lions don't have enough firepower right now to beat you. So I would be pretty concerned right now on the Detroit side. And to me, it seems like they are missing Ben Johnson because this offense just lacks that creativity, that dynamic element that we saw over the last couple of years, and I think a lot of that was how good of a play caller Ben Johnson is, and not having him, like, this is still a good team, but it just feels like they're down quite a few pegs from where they were.
Yeah, right now the early reports is Amon St. Brown might miss up to a month with an ankle injury, which would pretty much be the entire rest of the season. If that ends up being true and he can't get back, because you never know what to believe with injury reports these days. But if that ends up being true, that's a monumental loss. He's, I would say, by and far, they're as good as Gibbs is, their number one weapon, their most consistent weapon on offense. This is a team that's already down Laporta. He's out with the for the year with back injury. He had to go for back surgery. As I said at the top, the offensive line has struggled. Weird story also this week. Going into this game, Frank Ragnow, he retires last season. He comes out of retirement just before the deadline because you have to come back before week 13 to be reinstated for the season, blah, 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 CBA rules, all this stuff. He goes for a physical and he fails the physical, has a grade 3 hamstring, which is a very extreme hamstring strain, and then he can't play, so he can't come back this season. Just a very bizarre story. You wonder what's true, what's not. How would he not know that he has this strain? How did he get hurt outside of football if he's not playing? I mean, yeah, everyday life happens, but a grade 3 strain seems extreme if you're not playing, some kind of pro sport. Very odd situation there. And I think it spoke a little bit to the desperation on Detroit's part. Yeah, maybe Frank Ragnow dealing with his own thing. He regretted retirement, wanted to come back. But I think it also spoke to Detroit realizing that there is a hole, there is a tenacity missing, particularly from this offensive line. And I think that showed in what ended up being a failed desperation move. And I think that speaks to the larger problems with this team. I think this team by far misses Ben Johnson more than Aaron Glenn. No offense to Aaron Glenn. But I think Kelvin
Oh yeah,
Shepard has done a
I
solid
agree.
job at defensive coordinator, given the pieces he's had. And once again, they have all of these injuries, much like the 49ers do, the two of these teams every single year, which there's something to be said about that. Um, but offensively, I think the identity that Ben Johnson is showing, without making this a Bears topic right now, Ben Johnson will run the ball whenever he wants. And I think that edge that bought into that Dan Campbell style of going for it on 4th down, of just being more physical, that I'm running it right at you and you cannot stop me. That element, I think, is missing from that team. And then when you don't have that, it's Jared Goff and a couple toys around him, right? Couple good players in Williams and Gibbs. There's no disrespect to them, but we know Goff is limited in roles like that. And if he's not protected and he doesn't have a great run game, I've seen what he became in St. Louis and Los Angeles. So, well, just Los Angeles, I have to say. But that is the problems I think the Lions are facing right now. And right now in their own division, they're having an uphill battle. And the rest of the NFC conference, it's not looking great for them right now.
It is, and I think you made some good points there about how they've lost their edge clearly, and we're still seeing them go for a lot of these fourth downs, but they're not converting at the
No.
same clip that they did, last year, especially. I mean, we saw a game a couple weeks ago, the Sunday nighter in Philadelphia. Would they go for it 6 times
Yeah.
on fourth down? Didn't convert a single one. That was a game where their offense was just awful. I mean, Goff had one of the worst games of his career in that game. So yeah, they've just been, and let's not forget. I mean, the Giants had them beat.
They did.
That game. I mean, the Giants are up for a good part of that game, and if not for Gibbs just exploding, the Giants could get a win in Detroit there, and then we're putting the Lions in the panic category. So at least they were able to win that game. But they got another tough one coming up this week. We'll get to the pick later, but they got all of a sudden the red hot Cowboys coming in.
Yep.
That's not going to be an easy game whatsoever, and so their prospects are, becoming more questionable by the week.
On the other side of it, before we switch over, Brian, just with the Packers, I wanted to say two things. One, I think you're seeing for both the Cowboys and the Packers that the trade that was made of Micah Parsons kind of working out for both teams. It's kind of working out for both teams right now. It's one of those trades, one of those rare trades where, yeah, kind of beneficial for both teams. That was the right move that needed to be
Yeah.
done. And you see what Micah Parsons, when they're up, what he can offer. As I mentioned, the sack early, late in the game. He had one earlier in the game. Just the constant QB pressures, freeing everybody else up. You see what a dominant player he could be. I'm very interested to watch him in the postseason. And then the one negative I will say, Bry, that the Packers kind of got away with is I think Matt LaFleur was kind of matching Dan Campbell a little bit and going for some of these fourth downs. I thought, and I want to get your opinion on this before we switch to the next game, I thought it was extremely reckless. I think it was 4th and 3. They go for it. Detroit could have a short field about at midfield to have a touchdown to win, to tie the game, and they go for it. And Jordan Love does one of these Jordan Love plays where I think he's like the only quarterback in the sport right now that constantly loves throwing one-footed off his back foot. And he kind of throws this lollipop throw up to Wicks. Wicks makes a great play. That could have been disastrous. That was a play that was clearly, it was not designed in that way. You only need 3 yards. Why are you throwing it so far down the field? I thought that was an extremely risky move on LaFleur's part. And Love, LaFleur, and the Packers kind of got away with a potential game-tying disaster situation. Did you have a similar opinion, or are you kind of just going, no big deal, they got it, let's move on?
Well, probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think my overarching feeling on it is just the fourth down has become so automatic now that it's almost like the teams are going for it regardless of the situation, regardless of the score, the amount of time on the clock. I mean, when it's fourth down and it's like less than 5 yards, we're going for it. It,
That's
it
what the
just
stats
doesn't
say.
seem to matter. Yeah, the analytics. I mean, I feel like the analytics say to go for. Is there ever a time where the analytics say to punt the ball? I really yet to see that. But yeah, I feel like it's gotten to a point, and this is something that's changed in recent time. It's only in the last few years. Like
Yeah.
we have seen a big shift. In our younger years of watching football, we saw teams punt far more
Mm-hmm.
often than they do now. I mean, there's just so much more going for it, bypassing chances for points, even, that would be short field goals to go for it, even on like, the opponent's say 5 yard line. If it's fourth and goal, teams are going for it. So I've just gotten used to, the way the NFL is operating in that regard. But I do think there is something to that where it was a risky play that they sort of got away with, and they'll take it. Love completed the pass. I
Yeah.
mean, Wicks came down with the ball, and he had a big hand in the win,
Yeah,
scoring 2 touchdowns. So kind of fitting that he made the play that sealed it. And Parsons, on your other point, I feel like he kind of played the role as closer, where like it was
absolutely.
fourth quarter, and Goff, they were in passing mode, and Parsons just shut the game down. Didn't let Goff get a pass away in a critical situation, brought him down a couple of times, and that was a huge factor late in the game. That's why you go get a pass rusher
Yeah.
of his caliber, and he's lived up to the billing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that regard. And with the fourth downs, yeah, it's the next gen stats. It's AI now. You see everything's AI powered, especially on Thursday night Amazon Prime. You see Red Zone yesterday, sponsored by Accenture, which is an AI generated company. That's huge into the AI market. It's everywhere. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is here to stay. I just think sometimes a little bit of common sense and conventional football of taking a field goal, taking the points, especially when it's inside the 20-yard line and it's basically a chip shot, just take the field goal because it always, always bites teams in the ass come later in the game. Brian, the middle game, which is always the dinner time game on Thanksgiving, featured the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Really a great slate of games this Thanksgiving here, especially the first two games. The Chiefs going down in this one 31-28. And Brian, a game where you look at Patrick Mahomes, he had a great game. He made the fantastic plays. He did all he could do. But as we've been talking about, and me and you, we've flip-flopped, we've went back and forth because it's just hard. How do you not trust the Chiefs? All this legacy, they should be better. Their offense looks better. There's just something missing with this team this year. And it just, things come back to the meme when you're 12-0 last year in one score games, when you're 17 games in a row dating back to the previous year before that, 17-0 in one score games, you're going to come back to the average, to the mean. It's just going to happen. That's how statistics work. This season now, I believe they're 1-5 or 1-6 in one score games, and the little things to win, to get that extra stop, to get that extra sack, to get Mahomes back the ball, or Mahomes not to have that extra turnover in the red zone. They're not doing that right now, Bry. For you, it's 6-6 with the Chiefs right now in the 10th seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
You right now, as it stands today, are they dead, or do you believe they have a shot of making the wild card?
Well, I do think they still have a shot, but one thing, I haven't looked at their remaining schedule, so I think that's something we need to pull up and kind of go
Yeah.
through the game by game the rest of the way. I'm not gonna count them out. I know that it doesn't look good for them right now, and it's probably mostly just going on past success because they've shown a lot of warts this season, as we talked about time and again. But in this particular game, it starts out pretty good for the Chiefs, right? Like they turn over, they get the pick on Dak Prescott, the
Yep.
first possession, go down the field, get the touchdown to Rasheed Rice, and it kind of feels like, oh, here we go again with the Cowboys, where they need to put up a big performance and doesn't look like it's going to happen. But, they were able to turn it around. I thought CD Lamb really had some big time plays in this game. It was a big bounce back after the drop filled game the week before.
Yeah.
I mean, he balled out in this game, got the touchdown that tied it early, got Dak hit him on a deep ball late, which helped seal it. I thought Dak, this was a big game for him
He
because
was
a
good.
lot of games, a lot of times it feels like he pads the stats against the weaker opponents, and when it comes time against the big opponent, when all the eyes are on the Cowboys, which then again is every week, but even more
Yeah.
so like Thanksgiving against a marquee opponent. A lot of times he doesn't have his best game. Well, he stepped up and he played a terrific game, threw a few touchdown passes. So I thought it was a big performance for the Cowboys, who've now beaten Philly and KC. For all their issues, we know those are still two big time wins to get the Cowboys thinking, maybe playoffs could be in their future, or they're still up against it themselves. But they played some inspired football here lately, and I think a lot of credit, as we talked about last time, to Brian Schottenheimer and the job that Dak has done for this team, rallying around, their fallen teammate in Marshawn Nealand, and they're becoming a pretty interesting story here.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think you Schottenheimer deserves the credit. I think Dak deserves the credit, but Jerry Jones deserves the credit. As it stands right now, I don't think the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. But we've given Jerry a lot of shit on the show. I think everyone has. And you know what? The moves he made at the deadline, where everyone said, "What are the Cowboys doing? They're dead." Logan Wilson. They're bringing over Quinnen Williams. Like what? Signing Clowney. What's going on here? You know what? All those moves, add Kenny Clark in from the Michael Parsons trade, they've kind of worked out. They get Overshown back from injury. The secondary is kind of pieced itself together, more led by kind of the up front, the front seven. You have to, you don't. I don't look at the defense and go, man, they went from one of the worst defenses in history to the 85 Bears. No, but they're comparable. They're competent. There is something there where they can get occasional stops. And this offense has been good pretty much all year. He talked about how CeeDee Lamb, he kind of started the game and closed the game. He had George Pickens right in the fat middle of that, really making key plays, especially in that third and that early fourth quarter, to really get them back in that long run that he had to really kind of flip the game, where he looked like he got away and he almost hurtled the guy into the end zone there and landed at the 5 yard line.
Mhm.
I mean, what a find. Jerry Jones deserves credit for that this year, where we got a whole bunch of stuff traded for him, a whole bunch of crap. Pickens has been absolutely incredible, been one of the most explosive weapons in the league this year. Javonte Williams, what an underrated signing that's looked out to be at the running back position. So they've made necessary moves, and you have to say, as I'll repeat, I don't think Dallas. I think they're too big of a hole to make the playoffs here in the NFC, but they're dangerous, Bry. And it's 6-5-1 right now. If you're the Lions coming up this week or any teams after that and you need these wins, you don't want to see Dallas. Dallas is dangerous. And there's an edge to them. They're playing for something. They're believing in Schottenheimer. They're believing in what the team has been constructed around them. You have to give them a lot of credit. And I think they have responded, beating the two Super Bowl participants in 4.5 days. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And listen, the Brian Schottenheimer hire was laughed at
Yeah.
universally. I mean, I don't think you could find a single person, a single NFL person who thought this was a good hire, and yet he's showing that he can coach in this league. I
Yeah.
mean, you wonder why he wasn't given a look really
Yeah.
in any of the other openings. But you talk about Jerry Jones. He obviously saw something here, and normally we don't trust Jerry Jones's judgment, but he also clearly had a conviction on the Micah Parsons situation. And you know what? Like you said, it's worked out. So the Cowboys have pressed a lot of the right buttons, which is something that we don't usually say about them, but it really does feel like they tend to thrive more in seasons where you kind of leave them for dead
They do.
and think that they're not going to be much of a factor. And it's the seasons where they go in with the Super Bowl expectations where they fall flat and they end up, 500 or below and just, it's disaster after disaster. This year, though, they're feeling a lot of good vibes.
And Brian, the crazy thing is the wild card looks too crowded for them, and the tiebreakers and the conference record. I don't think they'll be able to get in that way. But honestly, they're kind of hoping for Philly's downfall over there. That's what they're hoping for. If Philly collapses like they did a couple of years ago, all of a sudden they're about a game and a half behind. They're creeping right up on the Eagles, and we'll get to them in a second. That's their pathway, if there is any, into the playoffs. We'll have to see how it plays out, but either way, they're dangerous. And before we switch over, Brian, I just want to make the final point with the Chiefs, because you brought up what's the schedule? Here's the schedule as it lays
Yeah.
out. This is their
Okay.
remaining 5 games. They're playing the Houston Texans on Sunday Night Football coming up this week. That's not easy. Okay, not an offense that scares you, but that
Mhm.
defense is elite. You got to worry about that
Yes.
situation. Then, yes, the Justin Herbert thing and the other injuries are up in the air with the Chargers. They still beat you. It's a division matchup. You're playing them. Then you play the Titans. Okay, I mean, yeah, you should beat the Titans. But then you have a 4-day turnaround on Christmas against the Denver Broncos, which probably determines if you get in the playoffs. Like, they finish with the Raiders. You expect them to mop the Raiders. But the Broncos game is, to me, it's everything. And if you're the Denver Broncos, even if you've clinched a seed, which you probably will, you'll probably clinch the division at that point. What would be better if you're Sean Payton and knowing how Sean Payton is and you're the Denver Broncos to just put the Chiefs out of their misery, to just beat them, knock them out of the playoffs? You don't have to worry about, oh, the most dangerous team in the playoffs. They're done. They're out. They're out. They probably finish 10-7 and they miss the playoffs. That is the opportunity that will be afforded to the Broncos potentially. And I think the Chiefs, yeah, it's not the hardest 5-game stretch, but it ain't easy by any means. 3 games and they're a little bit tough, and they pretty much have to win, Bry, every single one, barring a major collapse out of some of the other teams in the wild card. I mean, what's kind of your feelings on the Chiefs after hearing that?
I think you know what they probably come up short because that's not an easy schedule. I mean, the Houston game is I would have to
Huge.
favor the Texans right
Yeah.
now.
They're red
Now
hot.
is that in Kansas? Is it in KC or Houston?
That game's in KC.
In KC. I still I that's a dangerous game.
Yeah.
I right now favor the Texans with what they're doing on defense. I think that's going to be a very tough game for the Chiefs to win. And look, the divisional games are tough. I mean, the only gimme in there, well, I guess you have the Raiders too. The Titans,
Titans,
those two are
Raiders.
gimmies.
Yeah.
Denver is obviously difficult and Houston's difficult. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see them definitely not winning all 5 games. I see them losing at certainly 1 and possibly 2. So I think that's going to leave them on the outside looking in.
Which would be an insane story that we'll definitely talk about some more. Brian, the night game on Thanksgiving was the Bengals visiting the Baltimore Ravens, and wow, this game was not close. The Bengals mopping the Ravens 32-14, and of course, Joe Burrow's return. He's been out since about the first quarter or so of week number 2 against the Jags. He looked good. He came back, looked good. He wasn't Superman. We've seen him play better even against the Ravens, certainly better against other teams, but he was steady. He was calm. I mean, out there, they played the clip a million times. If you watch the game or you saw it online, where he's counting down the play clock as he's behind the center and he's in shotgun just waiting. Yeah, 6, 7. Yeah, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time. 8, and he's counting the whole thing. All right, 2, and then it goes. Like, he was in complete control all night long. And you have to just show that what it's like having one of the best quarterbacks in the league back. Even as a non-Bengals fan, obviously, it's just nice to see Joe back. It's nice to see one of those core 4 top QBs back in action, even when the Bengals are probably out of it. We'll talk about that in a second. But Bry, for me, I know the division in the AFC North is bad, but I'm extremely concerned about the Ravens. I've been saying this for weeks.
Yeah.
They're they feel even more hopeless than the Chiefs. There is something deeply broken with this team. And where the defense was so atrocious at the beginning of the year, historically bad. Lamar gets hurt, they get better. Now Lamar comes back, and you could see it, Bry. If you we've been watching Lamar his entire career. This is a 2-time MVP, one of the most electric players we ever seen. He's not running. He's been running less in general the last year or so, but he's not running at all. When he does run, he just does not have the same pop. There's not the same electricity. You could just see it with the naked eye that there's something missing there. And then the rest of the team, look, they're a team that doesn't have this all-pro, insane Hall of Fame wide receiver. Zay Flowers is a nice player who I've never seen a wide receiver fumble more than him in my life, but he's a nice player. But other than that, like, yeah, you have the 2 tight ends that are solid. Mark Andrews, he's on the back 9 of his career. The offensive line is not as great as it once was. I think Derrick Henry has definitely taken his first step to being human this season. And this team turned the ball over 5 times, Bry, on Thursday night. I mean, it was just insane. I'm not, rating the Bengals as all of a sudden an all-pro level defense. I just think this was a atrocious performance from the Ravens. And yeah, they'll probably win this division by fault, Bry, but by default. But I don't feel good about them at all. I mean, are you kind of in the same category with me?
I definitely am. I mean, you look at the division though, and you say who is going to take it. The
Oh God,
Steelers right
so
now look
bad.
dead as a doornail. I mean, Cincinnati just gets Burrow back. It would take kind of a miracle for them
But they
to
could do it.
rally all the way
They
and make the
could do
playoff.
it.
They could, wouldn't put it past them, and then the Rams are a non-factor. So yeah, they might win it, and somehow they had this 5 game winning streak
Yeah.
recently, which got them back in it, but it didn't really feel like they were back to being close to an elite team. I mean, even watching them play against the Jets the week before, they won, but didn't really look
Yeah.
impressive in doing so. Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem, what makes them special is what Lamar is able to get out and run the ball. I mean, that's the dynamic quality of the offense that's just been missing when clearly he's still hampered by this injury. I mean, like he's a good thrower of the football, but he makes his money with his legs.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any question. And yeah, I mean, this game, it was just, as you said, turnover after turnover. They had a one turnover when it looks like they're going to go into the end zone with Isaiah Likely, who loses the ball like less than a yard from the goal line. It goes through the back of the end zone. That becomes a
How do
touchback for
people keep doing
Cincinnati.
that? I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, those are just killer turnovers. And Lamar, getting sloppy with the ball, that fumble, which gave the Bengals the ball. Basically, they're inside their 5 yard line. We talked about, teams not settling for field goals. Well, Cincinnati in this game, Evan
They
McPherson with
didn't
like
care.
6 field goals.
Send him out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It was enough. And yeah, like Flowers is kind of a hot and cold player. I feel like he was in a groove earlier in the season, but that's kind of cooled off. Henry still looks like he has his legs, but he's not having the same production as he did a year ago. Their defense has been too hit or miss. I just think there's too many holes. And it'd be one thing if Lamar was fully healthy. You'd say, okay, the Ravens can still be dangerous. This version of Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are not at all a factor, even if they get into the playoffs, which right now doesn't look like a sure thing.
Yeah, right now this is the worst stretch by far of his career, definitely since his rookie season where he kind of came in at that tail end after Joe Flacco. He's just been a mess, Bry. And I think some of it is probably a lingering injury. But you know what? Also, I'm not fully blaming it on that. He's just been bad. He's just played poorly. And that has been a problem. He has had a fumble problem in the past. And I think a lot of people, this has been talked about, me and you have never bought into this when people were getting a little hyperbolic, and I think that has to go back to the old stuff with Jim Irsay and Bill Polian and all these things that were back then of, oh, he should be a running back, he should be a wide receiver, this guy shouldn't play quarterback, back when he was getting drafted in 2018, which was obviously nonsense. We knew that then, we certainly know that now. But people got a little hyperbolic, especially after his second MVP, saying this guy might be the greatest thrower of the football we've ever seen in NFL history. I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, come on. He's a good thrower of the football, but let's not. I don't have to break down all 22 film like a former NFL player to understand the logic of football, that the threat of his legs opens up passing lanes, opens up the passing game, and allows him to throw some of these passes. And yes, he is incredibly accurate. He's been accurate since he's been at Louisville. That's not been a concern. The concern is, can he throw with anticipation? Can he throw in tight windows, throw guys open? And I don't think that's where Lamar particularly excels. And now, as the run game has kind of dissipated between him and Henry, more on him, we're starting to see some of his kind of flaws, some of his sloppiness with the football. And this Ravens team, God, this AFC North is just bad, Bry. They're just bad. I guess the only thing I could say is, you make up the McPherson thing, you say the McPherson thing, goes back to our point in the Detroit game. Sometimes just kick a freaking field goal. You got 18
Yeah,
points out of field goals.
yeah.
Literally makes complete sense. That's what you should be. Almost half of Cincinnati's points. And on the other side with Joe Burrow, Bry, what'd you think of him coming back? And I know it's slim, but they're only 2 games back of the Steelers and the Ravens, believe it or not. Do you give the Bengals a shot to win the AFC North and sneak into the playoffs?
I give them a shot. I think it has more to do with the state of the division.
Yeah.
I think if the Ravens were at a point where we really believed in them more than we do, it wouldn't really give Cincinnati much hope at all. But because of the Ravens' struggles and the Steelers' struggles, that even with the Bengals as far behind as they are, getting Burrow back, he's shown that ability in the past in his career where he can just put the team on his back for a 5 or 6 game stretch and throw basically 3 touchdowns a game, and their offense can just light people up. Once they get T. Higgins back healthy, he was down with a concussion.
Yeah.
Chase had the suspension for the spitting incident a couple weeks ago, so their top weapons have been in and out a bit, but they get them all healthy and get Burrow, really in a groove. I give them a chance. I mean, it's another team that I want to see what their remaining schedule looks like. But before even knowing the opponents, I would say just because of how good Burrow is and how mediocre to even less than that the other teams are in the division. Hey, why not?
Well, Brian, I knew you were going to ask that, so I already had it prepared. Here's the final games for the Bengals, and it's not easy, but it's laid out in front of them. If they want it, they can take it. They have the Bills this week, then the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and then they finish with the Browns, who I know Joe Burrow hasn't historically been great against, but they are still the Browns and they are playing in Cincinnati. So the final 3 games are all winnable. I'm not saying they can't lose them because they certainly can, but Dolphins, Cardinals, Browns, you could win that. It's going to come down to these 2 games that they have coming up right here: the Ravens again and the Bills this week. You win those 2 games, Bry. All of a sudden, it's a 2 game lead right now. It goes down to 1 game if you sweep the Ravens. All it takes is the Ravens slipping up in one other game, and the Bengals have it. So it's a very low statistical thing. I wouldn't put my money on it. I would still put it on the Ravens. But you have to say this game definitely changed my opinion of, oh crap, with the Ravens going down, the Steelers losing, the Bengals actually have a shot here. And I think this could be kind of a fun run here to the end of the season for these next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see them beating the Ravens again. We just saw them win in Baltimore, so why not win in
Yeah,
Cincinnati? The Bills game is obviously going to be a tough one. I mean, they're
huge.
going to be a significant underdog in that one. Bills were feeling a lot better about themselves after their, just crushing of the Steelers this week. So yeah, I mean it's obviously a slim chance they put themselves behind the 8 ball. I mean, not entirely their fault, Burrow
Yeah.
going down, but just the fact that they've gotten him back much earlier than anticipated and giving them, a glimmer of hope is a good thing for
Yeah,
them.
you never know what to believe with these injury reports. Some people were saying, these supposed doctors on the internet were saying, like, he's probably out for the season. He's not coming back. Well, he's back, and he was back here in the last, not even quarter of the season, even before that. And I like his message that he gave of, like, look, we're getting paid a lot of money to play a kid's game. I want to be out there. I love playing with the guys and playing football. And how am I going to sit out? And athletes just don't think that way, where everyone's like, yeah, he should sit. What does he come back for? It's meaningless. Athletes don't think like that. And I appreciate him having a little bit of kind of a tenacity to go out there and want to finish the season strong. Brian, the final game here was the Black Friday game, which I actually have come accustomed to enjoying these games. I believe this is the 3rd season of the debut of the Black Friday game. Now, this one was, of course, on Amazon Prime. It took place in Philadelphia with the Eagles hosting the Chicago Bears, 2 teams 8-3, which is not shocking for the Eagles and is very shocking for the Bears coming into this game. And the Bears win 24-15. It wasn't even as close as that. They thoroughly dominated, thrashed the Eagles, running for almost 300 yards. I believe it was 281 yards as a team. Monangai and Swift both go over 100 yards. The Eagles had no answers whatsoever on defense. And when that happened, Bry, this offense is played like this offense has pretty much all season, a mess. Things don't make sense with all the talent that they have. I know the offensive line, as we've talked about, is a little banged up, but Barkley is just wow, he's just been a shell of himself this season. And AJ Brown, 10 for 132, I believe he had in this game. So he got his. So that's why you didn't hear him talk, which is not something I love. I think that's a little bit of selfishness. I'm sorry. I can't rock with players like that where all of a sudden your team loses two in a row, but now you're not saying anything because you're getting your catches. I don't know. I just don't like stuff like that. But this Eagles offense has looked rough, and you got to give the credit to the Bears, man. Ben Johnson, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about the Lions, he has changed the culture. There's a great vibe. Him taking the shirt off, ripping it off in the locker room, and doing his good, better, best chant. Which I'm not even a Bears fan, and that gets me pumped up. What was your takeaway from this game, Bry? Are you looking at now at the moment the number one seed Bears is for real and a threat here come the playoffs? Or are you looking at the Eagles go, it's a couple losses, they'll get back on track, or is this full on 2 years ago panic mode for the Eagles?
It's getting close to panic mode. I just think there's too many things that are amiss right now. And even if you watch that game, to hear the amount of times the crowd was booing, I mean, this is a defending Super Bowl champion. Their fans will boo you. I mean, they have to be the fan base that boos their team
Yeah,
more than any other in all of sports. I mean, the boo
not even
birds are
close.
always out when that team isn't doing well, and they're deserving of the boos right now because that offense, they were deep into the fourth quarter and had 9 points on the board, and a lot of the numbers kind of got inflated after the game was over. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know AJ Brown statistically it was a good game. A lot of it, it was 24-9 at that point. The game was over, and he kind of padded his numbers for the bulk of that game. Hurts and the offense, it was listless. I mean, they weren't able to do anything, couldn't get anything going in the running game again. And then their defense, which is something that they typically have been able to rely on this year, to get gashed the way they did by the Bears running game. Suddenly this Manung guy, it seems like they've really found something
Hey, he's
there,
look good.
and a tandem between he and Swift. So I give the Bears credit. It was a great performance on the ground. It was a game where, they didn't ask Caleb Williams to do a whole lot and just relied on that 1-2 punch and just trounced Philly, which you don't typically do. I mean, their defense typically keeps teams at bay. And so the combination now of their offense struggling with a defense that's showing vulnerabilities, I think that spells trouble down there in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think it's totally possible. I mean, I'm looking at their schedule here. They're playing the Chargers, who are banged up this week. Then it's Raiders, Commanders, Bills, and then Commanders again. So, like, theoretically, there's a lot of winnable games in there. Particularly at least 4 out of the 5, which I think will be plenty to seal up the division. The Cowboys won't be able to catch them even if they win out. But there is some concerns. I mean, we don't advocate for these things, obviously, but, I don't know if you saw the news a few hours ago came out that offensive coordinator Kevin Petullo, his house was egged last night, which I don't mean to laugh, but, no one was hurt, but still, like, it is vandalism. You just shows what Philly fans, and he lives in Jersey, so it shows what Philly fans will cross the border and do when they believe it. And I don't know if he's the entire problem. I think it's just everybody. I think it's a collective. And this is the point where we talked about this the last couple of years. And I know if Eagle fans were watching this podcast, which I don't think many of them do, but if they did, this is why I think me and you were on the same wavelength, definitely me more. Where, like, you could give Sirianni credit, right? Like, he's had a great start to his career coaching wise, but, like, when you ask me to go, who's your top 8 coaches in the NFL? I'm sorry, he's just not in it. He's just not in it. What does he do? Like, he's not a defensive guy. He's not an offensive guy. He's supposed to be an offensive guy, but he used to call plays, then gave up the play calling anymore. Now he can't do that. He's not going to take it over. And he just doesn't, he's got a weird pulse over the team. He does all these insane antics and fighting with fans and all this stuff, all the things with Big Dom, it's just, there's a lot of hoopla always going on. And for the most part, somehow I've never seen any professional team survive and and win and thrive in that environment. The Eagles did last year. I give them entire full marks and credit for that. But when it comes to these moments, when the rubber meets the road, when there is a tough going here, we saw it a couple years ago, we're seeing it now. What does he actually do to stabilize this team? Then you have Jalen Hurts, who's a good player, but he's not a great player. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league, despite what all the media tries to trick you into believing the last couple of years. And he's also not a vocal leader. And so I think when you mix all of those things together, they're kind of a boat without a rudder right now, Brian. I mean, do you kind of feel that way?
Yeah, and I mean, I think a big factor too is last year Barkley was just
He was
unbelievably
insane.
good. I mean, that was a huge reason why the team was as successful as they were, and to have him go from being that version to whatever this version is. I mean, nobody could have seen this big of a drop off coming. And, with their other issues, that their passing game has just been so inconsistent, they could get away with that last year because Barkley was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But he's not going off really any game this year. And their passing game, and as you put it, I thought you made a good point last time, where it was like they play a half of football each week, and that's the way it's kind of gone now. This past week they didn't even play a half. They I don't even know if they played a quarter. It was just not a
Yeah.
good performance from up to bottom. But yeah, I just think there's too many things lacking right now, and we're not seeing any sign of Barkley showing that ability that he had a year ago, and so it just feels like they don't have nearly the level of play that they could get to, this season, and it's been kind of a mystery because, as you put it, Sirianni has struggled with the pulse of the team. I think that's the big point. I mean, to me, he fits Philadelphia well, like
Yeah.
just kind of the chaos of the city and the fan base and what he brings in. Hey, he's delivered a Super Bowl championship, so for that he'll forever be etched in Philly lore. But in other ways, he is leaving a lot to be desired.
I just I want to just not push this aside because we've been talking a lot of Eagles before we get to our picks. I want to revisit the point. Do you believe in the Chicago Bears now sitting as the number one seed at 9-3, despite Caleb Williams' pedestrian numbers not playing fantastic? Ben Johnson said that earlier today that the passing game leaves a lot to be desired. It's not what they expect. What do you think of the Bears? Do you believe right now that they're going to win the NFC North and they are going to be the number one seed?
Yeah, it's a good question too, because as you know, I'm not typically high on this Bears team, so for them to be sitting here at the number one seed, I have to say they have far exceeded my expectations, and I have to give them credit for, how impressive they've been, and I honestly believe that Ben Johnson might be the next, like, really great coach
Yeah.
in the league. I think he's showing that in year one, and it wasn't a smooth ride. I mean, things were pretty rocky
Yeah.
early in the season for the Bears. That opening Monday night
They
game
were
where
they
they
were talking
blew it
about
against Minnesota.
there was not to interrupt you, Brian. I'm sorry, but there was literally talks at a Chicago radio. I will not let them forget this. Earlier in the season, about week 3, when they were 0-2, almost 0-3, about starting
Yeah.
Tyson Bagent and literally sitting Caleb Williams. Like that was what was going on, and they have been incredible in this win streak.
Yeah, I mean how far they've come, and there was and thought going into the Black Friday game, oh, well, they haven't really beaten anyone. Let's see how they do against the Eagles. And even with the Eagles' flaws, well, they went in there and they punched them in the mouth.
Yeah.
So I think now you have to take the Bears seriously, even as tough as the division is. A lot of it's going to come down to the games they still play in the division, including this upcoming one where they play the Packers. Can they go and win that game, if they do, I think then people really do start to believe that they could be the number one seed. I don't know that I'm fully there. I'm not saying this Bears team is going to win the NFC this year and represent the conference in the Super Bowl, but, they have far exceeded my expectations. I think they can win in a lot of different ways, and I'm very impressed by Ben Johnson as a head coach.
Yeah, I absolutely am as well. He deserves a ton of credit. I will say though, I was reading some stuff up. Obviously, the Rams suffered; they were the number one seed. Suffered a rough loss this week, a bad loss against Carolina. But I looked at a lot of the stats people were talking about. If it stays pat, the Rams basically have no way in tiebreakers of besting the Bears, just based on conference records and all this stuff. But the Rams, yeah, not an easy schedule to finish out, but we're going to learn a lot about these Bears, as you alluded to. They play the Packers, the Browns in that defense, the Packers again, the Niners, and the Lions to finish the season, who will obviously be fighting for their playoff life. That's a rough 5 games, particularly a rough 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a lot about what this team is made of, if they deserve to make the playoffs, and if they deserve to be the number one seed. I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket right now, and I still think teams like the Rams or even the Seahawks have an absolute chance, even the Eagles, of reclaiming that top spot. But if you're a Chicago fan right now, the first time I think you've been the number one seed since 2006, where you made the Super Bowl this late in the season, you got to feel pretty good if you're a Bears fan. Guys, we're going to switch over to NFL picks here for week number 14. I can't believe it's week number 14. A quick update. Patriots still about 7-30 left in the fourth quarter, up 30-15. I mean, that game's well in hand. The Thursday night game, Bry, this week kicks off. It's a doozy, and it's the rare Thursday night game where both teams have a nice week off, which is usually your best product on Thursday night because of the Thanksgiving game. The Cowboys visit those Lions in a huge game for both teams, who both are fighting for their playoff lives right now. Amon-Ra most likely missing this game for the Lions, as we talked about. Who do you have in this one, Bry, in a huge matchup where it feels like the loser will probably miss the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game, and it feels like when these two teams match up, you typically get a really good
Yeah.
game. There have been some kind of bizarre things that have taken place in this matchup. Remember with the tackle eligible or ineligible a
Dan
couple of
Campbell
years
hates
ago
the
with the
Cowboys.
Lions, and they played a good playoff matchup too in years past. So this is one of the fun matchups in the NFC. But I'm riding the momentum that the Cowboys are on right now. I just feel like this is a team that is playing clearly, very inspired. Dak playing well, and with the Lions showing their shortcomings here lately, not having Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously a big deal. I just like everything about where the Cowboys are at right now, coming off two big time wins. I think they continue the momentum. I'm taking them to win this one on the road.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth just because when you expect the Cowboys to win big games, even this season, they play the Cardinals or the Panthers and just lay duds. So I've kind of gone back and forth
Yeah.
on what I think in my mind. I think pound for pound, the Lions should be the better team. But I got to go with you, Bri. I got to go with my gut. And I got to say the Cowboys right now. I got to ride the momentum. I just feel like there's something missing here in Detroit. I know Campbell. I saw the press conference today that Lions fans are getting hyped up about, that he looks like he has an edge to him in this game. I think he has an edge to him in every game. He's Dan Campbell. He's very intense.
Yes.
I just don't think right now they have enough. There's just something not clicking with this team. Their home field advantage doesn't seem the same. They're injured all over the place as they are every year. And the Cowboys just, it feels like this is a game that, even more so than these last 2 games, where you feel like, oh, they're riding an emotional high, natural letdown coming. I feel like the Lions are in a perfect spot to kind of get clipped. And I'm taking the Cowboys in this one. It's going to be a good one. The Sunday games, right, kick off with the Seattle Seahawks visiting Atlanta. I mean, it's Kirk Cousins. The Falcons just lost to the Jets. I hope the Falcons keep losing because we have their first round pick, which is even more of a joke for Atlanta. Come on, Raheem Morris is probably getting fired at the end of this year. We know what's going to happen. Seattle's going to wipe them, giving the Seahawks.
Yeah, remember it wasn't too long ago where people were suddenly, drinking the Atlanta
They beat the
Kool-Aid
Bills.
after they beat the Bills on Monday night. Yep, had a couple good wins. It was like, oh, what do we think of this Falcon team? Looking pretty good. Well, it's completely fallen apart. Yeah, Michael Penix out for the season. Cousins looks like it's almost retirement
Time to pack
time. I
it
mean,
up. Hit the
he is
broadcast
not
booth, bud.
bringing yeah, not bringing much to the dance these days. They're without Drake London. They were at least last week. I'm not sure about his status for this game, but Seattle, one of the best teams in the league, the last one despite not a very big game from Darnold or Jackson Smith and Jigba, and had no problem with a home win our last time out. So I think it's an easy Seattle win here.
Yeah, we don't know the status of Drake London, but as of 7 hours ago, head coach Raheem Morris said he certainly has a chance to play this week, which is kind of a 50-50, feels like game time decision situation there. The Steelers and the Ravens, and two teams that are, if you wanted to be a young kid and say these teams are mid, that's what I would say. 6-6, they are the definition of mid. They're in a mid division. They're in a terrible division, but yet they still have a chance, either one of them, to acquiring first place in a win here. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, Bry, that was not only, all the things we could talk about from the loss of the Bills, but I thought it was a poignant moment. Classic. We've been waiting all season. Aaron Rodgers, once again, when the kind of the going gets tough, calls out receivers in the press conference, is standing there, his nose completely busted up and obliterated. He's got a cast on his left hand. Aaron, buddy, it's time to pack it up. It's over. You're washed. The Steelers aren't good, and I'm taking the Ravens this one. Come on now.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, we just talked in the last segment, and basically eviscerated the Ravens. But in this game, it feels like they're clearly the better team. I mean, at some point, we have to get some better play out of Lamar Jackson.
It
I feel
has
like
to.
he's not going to be as bad as he's been, has to. And the Steelers' defense has had some games where it's played really well, but most of the time it's just looked old. I mean, frankly, the Steelers look old top to bottom.
Yeah.
Rodgers looks old. The defense looks old. I just didn't think this was a collection of players that was going to
No.
amount to a winning kind of team. So I was surprised earlier on where they were looking a little better. Rodgers was looking pretty good, but lately he just looks old. And so I don't think there's much to look forward to the rest of the way there. I'm taking the Ravens.
And look, I don't want to just completely just rag on him. I will give him credit. He's 41, almost 42 years old. He only missed one game. He's out there. He's all banged up, as you see, and he's still giving it his all. So I will give him credit in that regard, but it just looks like maybe a Mike Tomlin losing season. I said this last year. I just think it's time for a change in Pittsburgh. I think it's a time for a divorce there. I think they've just reached the end of the road. The only thing you could say, Bry, is Lamar, if you want to talk about everybody really being mid, he's really struggled against the Steelers for the most part in his career. I wouldn't be shocked if he lost this game 13-10. It just feels like that kind of season in a garbage AFC North. The Titans, you want to talk about garbage. The Titans visit the Cleveland Browns, and oh my God. I mean, do I have to? I don't know. Honestly, I swear, I don't know if I've watched two worse teams in the NFL in the last 5 years off the top of my head. I probably had than the Las Vegas Raiders and the Tennessee Titans this year. I mean, these two teams are just atrocious. Like, if there was a relegation system, you would elevate Ohio State and send the Titans to college football. I mean, like, that's how horrible they are. They are just, whether, who doesn't matter who the coach is, if it's Callahan, if it's Mike McCoy now, we don't know, is Cam Ward good, not good, because there's nobody around him. You have no idea how to evaluate him. The team is just so freaking bad. I just hate watching them, and I'm taking the Browns. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think Ward is the most sacked quarterback in the league, so that's a number that you never want to lead in. And the Browns, for all their issues on offense and quarterback shuffling in and out, now we see Shador Sanders, and then he gets hurt, and is he going to play? Who knows? But the Browns defense, they come to play
They're
every
real.
week. I mean, they are a vicious unit led by Miles Garrett, who's having an outrageous season. It's just kind of getting lost in the shuffle because the Browns are not good. but their defense can shut people down. And then going against the Titans, who are overmatched on a weekly basis. Well, I don't think many points are going to be scored in this game, but it's the Browns' defense that's going to win it.
I swear to God, Brian, I think Miles Garrett could break the sack record in this game. Like, I really think he could have like 5 sacks. Like, I really think he could break the all-time sack record in this game. That's what I'm expecting. I mean, right now it feels like he's locked up Defensive Player of the Year, and you know, I don't blame him, but I also don't feel bad for him. He had a chance to leave. He took the money. It just sucks that we don't get to see him playing in January, in potentially February on a better team. It's just an all-time talent getting wasted there in Cleveland. The Indianapolis Colts visit the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first place currently Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams in 8-4, and both teams going in the absolute opposite directions. Bri, it's a teams that we've talked about many times. The Jags, I don't fully believe in them still, but right now the Colts are in absolute free fall. Daniel Jones dealing with a crack in his fibula. I think that has clearly inhibited his ability to move in the pocket, which is kind of limited in its own right, even though he has semi-athleticism. And the Colts just don't look like the team that they were at the beginning of the season. The schedule has gotten way harder. It's going to continue getting harder. We're waiting on the Sauce Gardner news. He got carted off yesterday. Some of the kind of video that is surfaced online points to possibly an Achilles injury. That does not look good there, especially after trading 2 first-round picks for him. Who you got in this game, Brett?
Yeah, I was high on the Colts early in the season, as I think everybody was. Their offense was basically the greatest show on turf, and while we could have expected regression, I mean, for it to have fallen off this much is alarming. And now you add in that Jones is banged up and just not looking nearly as good the last couple weeks. I'm taking the Jags. This defense gets after you. They can turn you over. Jones is turnover prone, especially here lately. They're not getting the same kind of production out of Jonathan Taylor of late. Jags are at home. I think they're going to steal one here.
Yeah, I'm taking the Jags as well. I looked here just to confirm. It seems a few hours ago, MRI from Sauce Gardner said that it was just a calf strain. He's week to week, but we know when these players get calf strains, we see this particularly in the NBA. It usually leads, if they come back too soon. Knock on wood, not wishing that on them, but it leads to Achilles injuries. So that is something massively to monitor there for the Colts. But yeah, whatever you want to say about the Jags offense, and God, it leaves a lot to be desired. This defense is pretty damn good. The Colts just feel like they're heading the opposite direction right now. It's hard to believe in them until they right the ship. I'm taking the Jags. The Commanders go to the Vikings in a game before the season, which would have been a huge game against 2 playoff teams last year. 2 teams that one went to the NFC Championship, but one won 14 games last year. 2 teams that have been massive disappointments with QB injuries. Is JJ McCarthy going to start in this game? Is he hurt? Is it going to be Max Brosmer, who looked absolutely lost out there against Seattle? I mean, one of the worst throws you'll ever see in your life. Getting sacked, could have settled for a field goal, and to throw it left-handed backwards to get it pick six was just awful. And then you get the Commanders. Yeah, Jaden Daniels might be back in a couple weeks. Mariota played inspired football last night on Sunday Night Football against Denver. Who you got in this one? And 2 teams. I know in your love for Minnesota, but 2 teams going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, well, listen, I've kind of given up hope on the Vikings. Their season has just not gone to, the way would have hoped. And I'm taking Washington in this game. I mean, if the matchup is Mariota against this Max Brosmer, or whatever you say, it, coming off his 4 interception game, I mean, give me Mariota, who looked pretty good against a nasty defense that Denver can pose. They took them to overtime. They fought tooth and nail in that game. I think Washington, while they're not good, I think they're in a better spot right now than Minnesota, which their quarterback play has just been abysmal. They cannot get the ball to their playmakers. Justin Jefferson had 4 receiving yards
On
in the
2
game
catches, yeah.
yesterday,
No.
so 2 catches. So trouble mounting there in Minnesota. I'm taking the Commanders.
Yeah, this is just a thing I'm throwing out there. I think I threw out there once before, but I'm definitely saying it now. If they don't make some massive QB change in the offseason, he's going to request a trade. I think he's done. I think you could see that. and he deserves every right to because he's been a trooper his whole career there, and they've let him down. Yeah, I'm taking the Commanders as well. I don't think they're a great team. Obviously, they're 3-9, but whether it's Brosmer or it's JJ McCarthy, I mean, how could you believe in the QB play right now for the Vikings? It's not like they have Adrian Peterson out back there where it's like, oh, just hand him the ball and they'll lean on the run. They're not that kind of team. I just can't pick them right now. I'm taking the Commanders. The Dolphins head to the Jets. Your Jets, Bry, 3 wins coming off a big win. But right now, the Dolphins, yeah, they're not a great team, but they have been playing better of late. And I think the Jets, come on, they're missing some talent. They're not that kind of team. I'm taking Miami.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nice anytime you can get a win. It's nice. Am I making a big deal about it? No. Did I think they were going to win? No. But hey, they get a win. It's certainly better than losing. I am never for tanking, so that's not something that I ever believe in. I believe you should always try to win games through the end of the season. You're trying to build something with this new coach, whether you have something in him or not. Look, is still far to be determined. I mean, anyone who thinks that just because they beat the Falcons that they're starting to build something here, let's calm down a little bit. So I think they're going to, regress even this week against a Miami team that we thought was dead. We had the head coach fired, and they've shown a little something, even though they kind of had to hold on their last game against the
Yeah.
Saints of all teams. But Tua clearly the better quarterback in this matchup. They've got some weaponry. I think Miami will pull out a close one.
The only chance that the Jets have in this game is it probably will be cold up there in MetLife, and we know how Tua does in the cold, so that's the only chance there. The Saints visit the Bucks, and the Bucks, hey, got a little bit hold this week, a little ugly against the Cardinals, but got Bucky Irvin back, got Chris Godwin back. There's some rumblings of Mike Evans maybe coming back in a few weeks. Starting to get whole. It was a little bit sloppy, but they're figuring it out, and the Saints are just they're lost right now. I'm taking the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, some of the quarterbacks that we're seeing out there on Sundays, it's like who?
Holy
Tyler
Lord.
Shuck, and as we talked about X Brosmer. I mean, it hasn't been pretty, but yeah, the Bucks. We've talked about they've been kind of up and down this year, but once they get their pieces back on offense, they can be dangerous. Certainly good that Baker avoided a major injury, was able to go out there a week after he exited with the shoulder. So, he should be good to go again. I think the Bucks will win handily.
Maybe the game of the week coming up here. The Bengals head to Buffalo in a huge game for both teams, particularly the Bengals, who pretty much have to win out. Bry, in a matchup of who most people would say are two of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see Cincinnati rally and stun everyone and find a way to win this division and make the playoffs. But I think a loss here probably ends that dream, and I think it's probably coming because, as we know, their defense is not good. I mean, somehow they got 4 or 5 takeaways last game, as we agreed on. That says more about the Ravens, but the Bills, they've been a little hard to figure out as most of the quote unquote good teams have been this year. But I just think they have too much, especially with James Cook and the way he's running the ball. I don't see Cincinnati having much of an answer there. And, the receivers haven't been great for the Bills. It would be nice if they got Dalton Kincaid back in
Yeah.
this game. He's missed the last 2. But I think it's a big day for Josh Allen against a defense that just hasn't been able to stop anybody, not named the Ravens. I think Buffalo takes it.
Call me crazy, Bry, but there's just something in my gut that is telling me Cincinnati's going to win this game. I'm taking the Bengals. I just think backs against the wall. I think even if Buffalo loses, they're probably not going to win the division anyway. They're still going to make the playoffs. There's just something you want to talk about things that are not right with teams. I mean, for most of the Steelers game, in the first half, especially, it was 0-0 and then 3-0. I mean, like they have just not looked cohesive offensively. Defensively, they really only get up for the Chiefs. Other than that, they've been gashed left and right. And this Bengals are in a newfound spirit with Joe Burrow back. I think the defense plays better. This game, they'll probably have both Chase and Higgins and Burrow for the first time since the beginning of week 2. There's just something in my mind. We know Joe is going up to Buffalo in the playoffs before in the snow and one. I just have a feeling here. I'm taking Cincinnati in a close one. I think it's going to be a good one. The Broncos on the 405 games head to the Raiders. I mean, look, the Broncos, this game will probably close because the Broncos play close games literally every game, no matter how good or bad the opponent is. But they're going to beat the Raiders. They beat them 10-7 in one of those boring games of the year a few weeks ago. They'll beat them again. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah, we talk about how week 1 is like always has some bizarre results. I have exhibit A for how you know week 1 is a weird week. You go back to week 1, the Raiders went into New England and won. And now look at where the teams are heading into week 14. The Patriots, who
Yep.
people have winning the AFC, and the Raiders, who are one of the doormats in the league. So that just shows you how crazy week
It's
1
so
is
true.
with some of the results. So yeah, it could be close because divisional game and to the familiarity level with the teams, but the Raiders are a hapless team right now. I mean, I thought they'd be better with Pete
I
Carroll
did too.
coaching them, but it has not gone well. Denver is winners now of 9 in a row, kind of under the radar here how well they played. I think they will make it double digits.
The Bears head to the Packers, one of the biggest games of the year for the NFC North for the potential #1 seed there in the NFC conference. Brian, who you got, the Bears or the Packers?
Yeah, big matchup here, and I think the spread is probably a little high. I mean, I'm seeing it at 6.5. I think this probably comes down to a field goal. I'm going to take the Packers to pull it out. I think this game is really going to come right down to the wire, but in the end, while I have my questions about Jordan Love, I have more faith in him to make a big play late than Caleb Williams, and the Packers being at home, I think puts them over the top. Taking Green Bay by a smidge.
I'm taking Green Bay as well. I think it'll be a close game, but it feels like, the Bears have been riding high. They got this long win streak. They're kind of due for a loss. They're going up to Green Bay. The QB play from Caleb Williams has not been great, and I think it'll need to be a little bit better to win this game against a really good Packers defense. Say what you want about the Packers. Their defense has been pretty much good all year long outside of that weird Cowboys game. I'm taking the Packers. The final 425 game is the Rams at the Cardinals. I mean, look, I'm taking the Rams. This is actually a sneaky, huge game for the Rams. I thought the Panthers game was a very sneaky game. If we were here for picks, I would have gave the Panthers an absolute chance. They're fighting for their playoff life. The Cardinals are obviously out of it. It's a divisional game. They split with the Cardinals last year. The Rams might be looking ahead. They have the Seahawks and the Lions after this are the next 2 games on within 4.5 days that they'll be playing both of those games. This is a huge game that the Rams have to secure. I'm taking them to win, but I think this game will be within a touchdown, within about 6 points. Give me the Rams.
Yeah, that was an unexpected result. I did not see. I could have seen it being close, but for them to lose outright to Carolina and have Stafford, who went into that game with only 2 interceptions, get picked off twice in the first half, one which went for a touchdown the other way. That was obviously a killer play. Puka seems like he's kind of slowed down a bit from his production earlier on, where it was like a guaranteed 150 yards. I mean, lately he hasn't had the same kind of numbers, but I'm taking the Rams. I think they get back on track here. I still believe they are one of the best teams in the league. I think right now they're the favorites in Vegas to win the Super Bowl. So, with that being the case, playing a team they're much better than, I think they'll take care of business.
Yeah, I just think as a point with the Rams, I think people got a little too overbloated with the Rams. I think they got a little too overbloated with Stafford MVP stuff. I think that kind of seeped in a little bit. It got to them. And hey, look, the Panthers are a solid team. They beat the Packers this year. They've had some upsets. They beat the Cowboys. They've done these things. They got beat in the rain, had 3 turnovers, 2 of them in the red zone. And yeah, that'll get you beat against almost any team in this league. To me, this week, I think the Cardinals defense actually could really show something against the Rams offense. This is a huge game for me for the Rams defense. I think they're a little overvalued, number one scoring D in the league coming into last week. Think they're a little overrated. This is a game where I want to see that pass rush actually show up, get to Jacoby Brissett, and I hope that happens. We'll see. Two final games, Brian. Two massive games for playoff seeding. The Sunday night game is the Texans at the Chiefs in Arrowhead. The Chiefs season literally on the line. They lose one more game, they are probably out of the playoffs. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm torn on this one. I really am, but I'm leaning towards Houston just because I feel like this defense, when you have a team with the identity as the defense like they do, like Denver does, that travels on the road. And so I just feel like the Chiefs have shown too many inefficiencies with their offense. Mahomes, hasn't been at his best here lately. I just think it comes down to Houston's defense kind of smothering the KC offensive line. They've proven that they can get after anybody. They got a lot of weapons on that side of the ball. Stroud is back healthy now. Nico Collins is his main man. I think the Texans are riding some momentum here. I know it's desperation time for the Chiefs, and typically in those situations you get the best out of them. But I just think ultimately it's going to fall a little bit short.
Yeah, I've gone so back and forth on this game, and I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to take the Houston Texans as well. I have to stick to my principles. Everything in me says to take the Chiefs, but I think that's just based on history. And right now, Josh Simmons, he gets hurt in this game. Andy Reid said, I think he has a broken wrist. He's probably going to miss the rest of the season. And Jawan Taylor, the right tackle, also might miss this game. When you have your two tackles and you're against the number one defense in the league with two bookend pass rushers, how many times, Brian, no matter who the quarterback is, have we seen that as a recipe for disaster? And it just feels like for all the greatness that Mahomes is, he's going to put up stats in this game. He's going to make crazy plays. I just don't know if they'll have enough to not get him harassed and hit all night long. It'll be a close one, but I'm shockingly going to take Houston this one, maybe something like 20-16. The final game, Brian, on Monday night is the Eagles versus the Chargers. For me, look, I know the sky's falling for Philadelphia, but the Chargers are so banged up. Herbert went for hand surgery today. He's day to day. Is he going to even play in this game? I got to take the Eagles, Brian. I just can't believe that they will lose three in a row with all the talent when they're relatively healthy. I think they right the ship against a really kind of the walking wounded in Los Angeles Chargers. Give me the Eagles to win it.
Yeah, I just don't trust the Chargers as far as I can throw them. And, I thought that was changing with Jim Harbaugh coaching. And at times it feels like they have turned the corner as a franchise. But then you go back a couple weeks ago and they get routed in Jacksonville. Like,
It's
I'm
just
just
weird.
not there with the Chargers anymore. Herbert, to me, is still, he has good games, but he's not a top level quarterback. He doesn't
Yeah.
deliver consistently enough, and now you throw in the injury as well. I mean, I like what they're getting out of this Kamani Vidal and the running game, but there's just too many things with the Chargers. And I mean, look, there's a lot of things with the Eagles too, but ultimately, I think they're the more talented team. At some point, I gotta believe this offense is gonna get going, even if it's not Barkley and Hurts gets it going with Brown and Devontae Smith. I'm taking Philly.
Yeah, there's a lot of tough picks this week in a season that Brian and I have very much struggled. So we'll see. I think there's some huge playoff implications. I think that goes without saying, obviously, and I'm so excited to see how all of that breaks down this upcoming week. But guys, that wraps up here. First and 10, week number 14. We recap Thanksgiving week. Week number 13 did week 14 picks. Let us know all your thoughts down below in some huge games going on. Very excited to see how this week works out. And you know what? As I'm randomly thinking off the top of my head, comment even below if next season you want us to start kind of like a community kind of picks pool or something like that. I think that could be kind of fun to run to see, Brian and I versus the community and see how that goes. So if you have any interest in that, comment that down below. If you've made it this far in the video, you're a true fan. And Brian, before we get out of here, as always, any final thoughts here tonight?
Yeah, well, I was going to bring up a story that we actually had touched on earlier, and that was the Frank Ragnow thing about him coming out of retirement and thinking that he was going to bring this boost to the Lions' offensive line and failing the physical. So I'm going to change my little final segment here and give you the final score. Patriots easily handled the Giants 33-15, but I want to bring up something specific because I'm not sure if you saw the highlight on this. Troy Aikman said he had never seen anything like it. It was a play for the blooper reel where the Giants
With
are
the kick.
lining up to kick a field goal with Young Wei Koo. And when I first saw it, I thought, was it a fake or was it just, it was just such a bizarre play that Koo goes to kick it and his foot just kind of gets stuck in the grass and he
Yeah.
doesn't get a kick away. And then the Holder ends up just getting sacked, and that's the end of that. And the Patriots go down and score the next play. But it was just such a bizarre play that when you watched it, it was like, what did you see here? I don't know if you
Yeah.
caught it or have any thoughts on that, but I just thought it was worth bringing up. Definitely one for the blooper reel.
Yeah, I saw it and I just shook my head. It just seems like the New York teams, in particular, cannot get out of their own way and consistently add to plays we've never seen in the blooper reel, whether it's butt fumbles years ago or plays like that. I've never seen a kicker miss that poorly and get his foot stuck. I've never seen anything like that. So I would agree with Trey Aikman and just speaks to the lost season that it really is, especially for the Giants, where there was some hope around Dart, and I think there still is, but there's huge questions for the rest of that year. I think that defense once again was massively overrated going into this season, and they have proven that they are really not that great. It's been all around a tough thing for New York sports, but yeah, New York sports. I guess the one thing tonight, the Mets 3-year deal, former Yankee and Brewers closer Devin Williams. So I guess that's a kind of a New York thing. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on that, but I guess it's something. So I don't know.
It, did that break while we were on the air? Because
I think it
I
was
did
about
not
two.
see.
I think it was about 2 minutes before we went live.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, I wasn't looking at any of the breaking news. I mean, I'm not surprised. It seemed like he was somebody
Yeah,
that was on their radar, especially with Stearns and the history there in Milwaukee. I mean, it was a very rocky tenure for Williams as a Yankee. I feel like he could be a bounce back candidate. You wonder now if it means that Edwin
I
Diaz
hope
is
not.
going to depart as a free agent, but we'll see.
Hey, you hope they could bring Diaz back as well to kind of bolster that back end. Otherwise, it just feels like you got a lesser closer. So I wouldn't love that move. But hey, that's for a baseball podcast maybe in the future, guys. If you stay this long, thank you so much. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends if you be so kind. And until next episode of First and 10, thanks for watching.